Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, we make trendy and fun crochet tutorials twice a week. If you haven't already, smash that like button, drop a comment below, and subscribe to join in on the fun. Today I'll be showing you how to make a modern halter top. This one's a quickie, so I'll keep it brief. We've got clean ribbing, a snazzy bottom band, and being a halter and open back for a little spice. Speaking of, if spice makes you look nice, you're in the right place because we've got hundreds of modern crochet designs for beginners to the most advanced among us, with many more on the way, so consider clicking the bell to subscribe and you'll never miss an upload. Also, do me a huge favor and give this video a big thumbs up if you like it, or 2 thumbs down if you don't. Either way, it's a great way to show support so I can keep putting out free tutorials every Wednesday and Sunday. Now it's time to get on the show, so without further ado. For this project, any category 4 yarn will work, but I used a total of 100 grams of yarn, and it's only 200 yards if you're stateside. As for tools, a 4.5 and 5mm hook, scissors, stitch markers, and a tape measure. There is a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount off any $9.99 plus order. And enter this week's pattern giveaway by telling us your favorite way to have potatoes. I love all potatoes, but if I had to pick just one, I would have to pick fries. Details for the giveaway down below. We're using 3 stitches for this project, and they'll be as follows. Chain, slip stitch, single crochet, and half double crochet. This tutorial is for a size small, but you can adjust it for your size, and we explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting this top started, we're all going to grab our category 4 yarn and make a slip knot. Next, we're going to grab our 5mm hook, and we're going to start with our underarm. So we're going to start by making a chain that starts about 1 inch underneath our underarm down to we want the bottom of the top to be, keeping in mind that we will have a bottom band as well. So I've managed to figure out that stopping the chain right about where your belly button is a great start. So I'm going to start by making a chain of 35, and that's just about 8 inches or 20 centimeters for me. Now that we have our chain, we're going to do our first half double crochet row. So start by blocking off that last chain and do a chain 2. That chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch, that's just our turning chain. And since we are starting along the bottom, we're going to start with a decrease of 2 half double crochets. Starting with the yarn over, we're going to insert our hook into that chain that we blocked off, or the 3rd chain from our hook. So insert your hook, yarn over, and pull through. Should have 3 loops on our hook. When we have those 3 loops, we're going to insert our hook into that following chain as well, yarn over, pull through. Altogether, we should have 1, 2, 3, and 4 loops on our hook. From here, just yarn over, pull through all 4, and that is our decrease of 2 half double crochets. From here, put 1 half double crochet into every chain, leaving the last one. So to do our first, yarn over, insert your hook into that following chain, pull through. When we have those 3 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through all 3. Let's do one more. Yarn over, insert your hook into that following chain, pull through all 3. Continue to do this until we have 1 chain left. We've put 1 half double crochet into every chain. Into that last one, we're going to be doing an increase of 2 half double crochets. So starting with the yarn over, into that last chain, insert with 1 half double, and then into that same last chain, a second half double crochet, and that is our increase of 2. Our following row is going to be a back loop slip stitch row with no increases and no decreases. So just chain 1, that doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain, and flip our work. From here, find the last stitch from our previous row, insert your hook in through that back loop, or the loop that's furthest away from us, yarn over, pull through everything on our hook. There's our first one, let's do this again. Into that next stitch's back loop, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through everything. Continue to put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, and a quick tip is make sure that we're not tugging too tightly after every stitch, otherwise the following row could be too tight to work into. You've just finished our row 2 or our back loop slip stitch row. So let's get started on our row 3. Starting with a chain 2 and flip our work. Our front and back panels are going to alternate between a back loop half double and back loop slip stitch row. And also when it comes to starting the bottom of our piece, we're going to be decreasing into every other half double crochet row. So since we decreased into our row 1, into our row 3, we will not start this row with a decrease. And we're only decreasing into every other row to make sure that the point of our front panel doesn't come up a little too high on us. So from here, just yarn over, insert your hook into that first stitch's back loop with a half double crochet. Pretty simple. Continue to put one half double crochet into every stitch. But before we move on, a really quick tip that I have is, since we are decreasing into every other row, just to make it easier to keep track of, I just like to insert my stitch marker into the beginning of my decrease rows. But from there, continue to put one half double crochet into every back loop, leaving the last one. We're nearly finished with the end of our row 3. We have one stitch left, so now we're going to do another increase of 2 half double crochets. So yarn over again, insert your hook into that last stitch's back loop with one half double, and then also with another half double. And then from there, a back loop slip stitch row. But for this piece, we aren't going to be doing any increases or decreases into any of our back loop slip stitch rows. So chain 1, flip our work, and then put one back loop slip stitch into every stitch. From here, we're going to continue to repeat these 2 previous rows that we did, making sure that we're decreasing into the necessary half double crochet rows when we start them off. We're going to continue these rows until this can stretch from mid-underarm, and remembering to stretch it as if we're wearing it because it has a good amount of stretch to it, over to the corner of our underarm. And I will meet you back right after a back loop slip stitch row. I have the first half of my underarm finished. I have a total of 4 rows and my width is about 1.5 inches or 4 centimeters unstretched. Since we all should have ended along the bottom right after back loop slip stitch row, we're going to get started on the following underarm row. So chain 2, flip our work. We're going to start with a decrease of 2 half double crochets if we have to, because everyone's going to start a little bit differently depending on which row they ended on. I'm going to have to do a decrease, so I'm going to start my row with a decrease of 2 half doubles, put one back loop half double into every stitch, leaving the last one. I now have 1 stitch left. Now we're going to be doing an increase of 3 back loop half double crochets just to get a smoother curve up to our shoulder. So yarn over, into that last stitch's back loop, insert with your first half double, with your second half double, and then also with your third half double crochet. From here, we're going to repeat. So our back loop slip stitch row will never have an increase or a decrease in it. So chain 1, flip our work, put one back loop slip stitch into every stitch, and then to get started on our following half double crochet row, chain 2, flip our work. Start that row off with a decrease of 2 back loop half double crochets if you have to for your pattern, and then put one back loop half double crochet into every stitch while maintaining an increase of 3 back loop half double crochets into that last stitch. Continue to do that until this can stretch from mid-underarm over to the front of our body. I'll meet you back right after a back loop half double crochet row. The entirety of my underarm portion is complete. I have a total of 7 rows. My width is just about 2 inches or 5 centimeters now, and that is unstretched. Now from here, we're going to make a chain that reaches all the way up to the back of our neck for our strap. I've already measured mine out, and I need a total of 25 chains, and that's going to be just about 6 inches or 15 centimeters. But once we have our chain, we're going to do the following row in our row sequence, which is going to be a slip stitch row. So from here, we're going to block off that last chain, do a chain 1. Into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, insert into there with a slip stitch. So insert your hook, gently yarn over, pull through everything on our hook. And since we should already know how to do our slip stitches, put one slip stitch into every chain. Now that we've put one slip stitch into every chain, we're going to continue to put one back loop slip stitch into every stitch. So just as a refresher, we may need to twist our work, but insert your hook into that last stitch from our previous rows, back loop with a slip stitch, and put one back loop slip stitch into every stitch. I've made my way down with my slip stitch / back loop slip stitch row. From here, we're going to maintain our back loop slip stitch row and our back loop half double crochet row until we get the width that we'd like for our strap to be, keeping in mind that we will start our half double crochet rows with a decrease if we need to. I just wanted to show you guys the bottom of my piece. As you guys can see, the stitch markers that I have are just into the rows where we started a decrease. And since my following row is going to start with a decrease, we're just going to do this as a really quick refresher. So from here, we're going to chain 2 and flip our work. Starting with our decrease, we're going to yarn over, insert your hook into that last stitch from a previous row's back loop, pull through into that following stitch's back loop, pull through all 4. And from here, put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, making our way all the way up. At the end of the row, chain 1 and then do a back loop slip stitch row with no increases and no decreases. I will meet you back once we have the width of our desired strap along the bottom right after back loop slip stitch row. My strap is all finished up. I now have a total of 10 rows and my width is 2.5 inches or 7 centimeters unstretched, and now we're going to work on our neckline. So put this up to yourself, making sure that the edge of our strap is wrapped around the back of our neck, and then we're going to insert our stitch marker right where we want our neckline to start. If you want a little bit more coverage, insert your stitch marker higher, or if you want to show a little bit more, insert it lower. So I've inserted my stitch marker into the 35th stitch from the top, and that's about 9.5 inches or 25 centimeters. Now from here, we're going to do our following half double crochet row, remembering to decrease if we need to at the beginning of the row. And we're going to put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch until we reach our stitch marker. Now that we have half double crocheted all the way up to our stitch marker stitch, from here we're going to maintain our back loop half double and back loop slip stitch rows until this can stretch over to the middle of our chest, remembering that we are still going to be decreasing into the beginning of every other half double crochet row. I'll meet you back right after back loop half double crochet row so that we can get started on the other half of the front panel right after that. The first half of my neckline is all finished up. I have a total of 21 rows and my width is 5 inches or 13 centimeters unstretched. Now we're going to mirror everything that we did over here on this side on the other side. We just need to start this section off with a middle row first. We all should have ended right after back loop half double crochet row. Our following row will be our middle row, which is going to be a back loop slip stitch row with no increases and no decreases. So just to get that started, chain 1 and put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. Our middle slip stitch row is all finished up. Now I did insert my stitch marker into that middle stitch because that'll help us once we get started on the bottom band. But once we're here, we're going to get started with the neckline, and we're going to mirror everything that we did here on the other side. So instead of doing decreases, we're going to do increases along the bottom now because we're going to have a point along the bottom. So this following row may be a little bit different for everyone. So just to show you guys what I'm going to be doing, since the last half double crochet row that we did, I did do a decrease into my following on the other side of my middle row, I'm going to do an increase. But if your half double crochet row did not have a decrease, you will not be doing an increase into this following half double crochet row. We want to make sure that all the numbers are even. So for me, since I did, I'm going to chain 2 and flip my work. Now the increase is just going to be an increase of 2 back loop half double crochets. So I'm going to yarn over and insert my hook into the last stitch from my previous row's back loop with 2 back loop half double crochets just like that. And I'm going to be inserting my stitch marker into the end of this row as well, just so I can keep track of which rows I'm going to need to increase into now. But from here, I'm going to continue to put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch. At the end of the row, I'm going to chain 1, flip my work, and put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, because remember, we don't do anything into our back loop slip stitch rows. And then from there, we're just going to continue on with doing our back loop half double, making sure that we are now increasing into the rows that we need to increase into, and a back loop slip stitch row until we have the same amount of rows as the first half of our neckline, making sure that we're not counting that middle row as well. I'll meet you guys back once we have that all finished up. The entirety of my neckline is all finished. I now have a total of 33 rows and my width is 8 inches or 20 centimeters unstretched. Our last row should have been a half double crochet row. So from here, we're going to make a chain for the same amount of stitches that we skipped when we started our neckline. Now I skipped a total of 35 stitches, so here I'm going to make a chain of 35. Now that I have my chain, I'm going to do the following row in my row sequence, which is a slip stitch row. So block off that last chain, do a chain 1. Into that chain that we blocked off with a second chain from our hook, insert with a slip stitch, put 1 slip stitch into every chain, and then put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch once we reach the body. Now this is going to be the shoulder portion. So we're going to continue to do our back loop slip stitch and back loop half double crochet rows, remembering to increase into the beginning of every other half double crochet row if you guys need to. And we're going to continue to repeat those rows until we have the same amount of shoulder rows as the first shoulder portion right over here. Once we do, I will meet you back so we can get started on the underarm. My second shoulder portion is all finished up. I have a total of 36 rows. My width is now 8.5 inches or 22 centimeters unstretched. And now to do the underarm portion, we are all going to need to insert our stitch marker into the same amount of chains that we made that reached all the way up and behind our neck. If you guys have my numbers, I made a chain of 25. So for me, counting from the top, I counted on 25 stitches and inserted my stitch marker into there. Since we all should be along the bottom, we're going to do a chain 2, flip our work, start this following half double crochet row with an increase if you have to, and then put 1 half double crochet into every back loop, leaving 3 stitches right before our stitch marker. We put 1 half double crochet into every back loop, leaving 1, 2, 3 stitches right before our stitch marker stitch. Now let's do our decrease of 3 because on the other side we did an increase of 3. Let's all start with a yarn over. Insert your hook into that third to last back loop, pull through, into that second to last back loop, pull through, and then into that last back loop, pull through. Now we should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on our hook. So yarn over and pull through all 5 of those loops. For our slip stitch row, we aren't going to have any increases or decreases, so chain 1, flip our work, and then put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. At the end of the row, get started with our back loop half double crochet row by increasing into the first stitch if we need to, and put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, leaving the last 3 so we can increase together again. I've finished my back loop slip stitch row and made my way back up with my back loop half double crochet row, and I've left 1, 2, 3 stitches to do another decrease of 3 together. So just as a refresher, we're going to yarn over, insert our hook into that third to last back loop, pull through, second to last back loop, pull through, and then into that last back loop and pull through. Together we should all have 5 loops on our hook, so yarn over, pull through all 5. From here, we're going to continue to repeat these 2 previous rows until we have the same amount of rows that we have for our underarm on the other side where we did an increase of 3 into every half double crochet row. Now, if you have my numbers, I am actually all done with this portion of my underarm because I only did 3 rows for that increase of 3 section. Now from here, we're going to continue on with the second half of our underarm portion, which is basically going to be the same thing, but instead of ending on a decrease of 3, we're now going to end on a decrease of 2 into every half double crochet row. So our following row should be a side slip stitch row. Chain 1, flip our work, put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. At the end of the row, chain 2, flip your work, do an increase of 2 back loop half double crochets if you need to, and put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, leaving the last 2 stitches so we can do a decrease of 2 together. So I've finished my back loop slip stitch row and my back loop half double crochet row, leaving the last 2 stitches, and now we're going to do a decrease of 2 half double crochets. So starting with the yarn over, insert your hook in through that second to last back loop, pull through, also in through that last back loop, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 4, and from here continue to repeat our 2 previous rows. So back loop slip stitch row with no increases and no decreases, and then a back loop half double crochet row, making sure that we start our half double crochet with an increase of 2 if you need, and it ends with a decrease of 2 for the same amount of rows as the first portion of our underarm on the other side. I had a total of 4 of those rows, so I will continue until I have a total of 4 of these rows, and then do a chain up of 1 and cut. I am back and I have just finished up the entirety of my front panel. I did do a chain up of one and cut right after my last row, and I have a total of 10 inches or 25 centimeters unstretched. Now from here, we're going to do the back panel, which is going to be just a solid back loop half double and back loop slip stitch row, which I already have mine done, so let's get that started together. So getting started on our underarm, we're all going to start by making a chain for the same amount of chains that we made for our underarm for the front panel. For me, that was a chain of 35. And then from there, I just did a row of back loop half double crochets and back loop slip stitch rows for the same amount of rows that I had for the entirety of my front panel. If you guys have my numbers, I had a total of 43 rows. So for my back panel, I did a total of 43 rows, alternating between a back loop half double and back loop slip stitch rows with no increases and no decreases. The only thing that I want to mention is that once we reach that same middle row that we have from the front panel, mine was row number 22, we're going to want to insert our stitch marker into that side row as well. But once we have the entirety of the back panel all finished up, I will meet you back right after our last row, which should be a half double crochet row, so that we can seam the sides together. So now that the entirety of our back panel is all finished, we're ready to seam up the sides. Now, a really quick fun fact that I have for you guys right before we get started with the back is that once we do the back, we could have just continued on with our back loop half double and back loop slip stitch rows without any increases or decreases, leaving us with just one side seam. But we prefer to do it this way, so within a front and a back panel, in case if you need to adjust the front panel, you can easily do that instead of taking apart the entirety of the back. But now that we're here, we're ready to seam up our sides. So first things first, make sure that the ribbing that we have is faced out towards us. So the front panel, we have the ribbing faced up, and the back panel, we have the ribbing face down. And then we're going to insert our hook into the bottom corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. We're going to pull our hook through, do a chain up of one to secure, and now we're going to do an outside loop slip stitch seam to make it look like another slip stitch row. So start by finding that first available stitch into the front panel and insert only in through that front loop. Next, find that next stitch into the back panel and insert only in through that back loop. And when we have those 3 loops on our hook, just yarn over, pull through all 3. Let's do this again. Into the next stitch into the front panel, insert only in through that front loop. Next stitch into the back panel, insert only in through that back loop. Pull through all 3, and then that's it. Continue to do this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into, then repeat on the other side. So now that our sides are all seamed up, the next thing we're going to seam is our halter. So from here, all we're going to do is flip our work wrong side out, meaning the inside of our piece is faced along the outside, and then we're going to insert our hook into the corner stitch of both the front and the back panel, insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, and then do a chain up of 1 to secure. And now what we're going to do is put 1 single crochet into every side slip stitch row and then 2 single crochet into every side half double. So to get that started, our edge rows should be side slip stitches, so just find that top loop, insert your hook in through there, and then within the back panel, find that top loop within that side panel again, find that top loop, and then single crochet just once. Now our following side row should be our side half double crochet row. So within the front panel, find that top loop, and then within the back panel, find that top loop again, and then single crochet, and we have 1 more single crochet left to do. So the second one should be a little bit easier since everything should be gathered, but insert your hook in through that top loop, and then within the back panel, in through that top loop as well, single crochet. And that is it. We're just going to continue to do that until we don't have any more side rows left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut. Now that everything is all seamed up, we're ready to get started on our bottom band. We are first going to need to single crochet along the bottom, so making sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up. We're going to insert our hook in through any one of the side rows that we have along the bottom, insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, do a chain up of 1 to secure. All we're going to do from here is put 2 single crochets into every side half double, and then 1 single crochet into every side slip stitch row, making our way all the way around. So start by finding our first available side row. Mine is a side half double. If yours is a side slip stitch, that's completely fine. But how we're going to work into our side half doubles is find that top loop and insert our hook in through there with 2 single crochets. So there's my first, and then into that same top loop with my second single crochet. Let's do the following row. My following row should be a side slip stitch row, so I'm just going to find that top loop and insert my hook into there with just one. So pretty much the same way that we did the seam for our strap. We just want to make sure that once we reach those middle rows within the front and the back panel, which should be a side slip stitch row for everyone, we're inserting our stitch marker into that top stitch. So I will meet you back once I reach my middle row. I've made my way down to my middle row. Now into that side slip stitch row, we're going to insert our hook with just one single crochet, so the same way that we've been doing it. But all we're going to do is take that stitch marker and then insert it into that stitch that we just made. And that is where we know where our middle stitches are. We're going to continue on with the same stitch sequence, making our way all the way around, remembering to insert our stitch marker into that same stitch within the other panel as well. Make your way all the way around, slip stitch into that chain space, and then do a chain up of one and cut. So our single crochet row along the bottom of our piece is all finished up, and now we're going to get started on the bottom band. So first things first, we're going to make sure the work is flipped right side out, right side up, meaning we're looking at the front panel, and then the bottom is going to be away from us. Now from here, we're all going to start by inserting our 4.5mm hook into that second stitch away from our middle stitch marker along the right side. And it needs to be on the right side for everyone because this isn't reversible. And making sure that we're inserting our hook in through that front loop. And we're all going to start by putting one front loop half double crochet into every stitch for the width that we'd like for our bottom band to be. Now I would like for mine to be just about 2.5 inches or 6 centimeters. So I'm going to start by doing 12 front loop half double crochets, starting with inserting our hook into that stitch marker stitches front loop. So yarn over. We're going to skip that following stitch, and then that next stitch that we have should be our stitch marker stitch. So let's insert our hook in through that front loop only. Yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through all three. Let's do that again. Yarn over, into that next stitch, insert in through that front loop, pull through all three, and I'm going to continue this until I have a total of 12 half double crochets. Now that I have my 12 half double crochets, we're now going to chain one, flip our work, and then put one back loop slip stitch into every stitch down towards the base. So flip our work, and then just like how we did the body, find that last stitch from our previous row, insert into that back loop with a slip stitch, and put one back loop slip stitch into every stitch. Now that we've put one back loop slip stitch into every stitch, we're going to need to connect it into the base, but now it's going to be within the back loops so that we have stitches to work into once we finish up our bottom band. So as a really quick refresher, our back loop slip stitch row is all finished up, and we should kind of be looking at the inside of our piece. So find that next back loop, insert your hook in through there to close off our back loop slip stitch row. And then we need to work our way up to our back loop half double crochet row. So slip stitch into the next two back loops into the base. So there's one, and then there's two. That gives us the height for our half double crochet, and then flip our work. And then from here, put one back loop half double crochet into every stitch. So yarn over, find the last stitch from our previous row, insert in through that back loop, and then put one back loop half double crochet into every stitch, and that's basically it. And we're going to continue to repeat these two rows until we reach the middle stitch marker stitch along the back. Once we're worked into that stitch marker stitch along the back, do a chain up of one and cut, and then I'll meet you back to start working on the left side of our bottom band. So as you can see, the right side of my bottom band is all finished up, and now we're going to fill in the left side. So first things first, make sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up, and we're looking at the front panel. The next thing we're going to do is actually fold the bottom band of our front panel over, and then counting from our middle stitch marker stitch, counting towards the right, we're going to count out the same amount of stitches that we have for our bottom band. So I made a total of 12 stitches for my bottom band. So making sure that we're counting that stitch marker stitch, I'm going to count towards the right, 12 stitches for me. So just to count together, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So insert your hook into that 12th stitch, and we should have those available stitches left since we worked into the front panels, since we worked into the front loops only. From here, insert your yarn onto your hook, pull through, and then do a chain 2. Just for this row, this chain 2 does count as a stitch. And then working towards our middle stitch marker stitch, we're going to be putting 1 half double crochet into every stitch. So we already have our first stitch. There's 1. Yarn over into that following stitch, insert your hook into there with our second. I will meet you back when I have my total of 12 stitches. Now that I have my 12 half double crochets, we're now going to need to connect it into the base, which is going to be on the left side of our stitch marker stitch. So counting from that following stitch, right after our stitch marker stitch, we're going to count up 1, count up 2 to close off our half double crochet row. So into that second stitch, insert with a slip stitch, so just yarn over, pull through everything, and now our half double crochet row is connected. Now our following row is going to be a back loop slip stitch row, so find that next available stitch into the base, insert your hook, pull through everything, and now we're going to flip our work. And now put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, remembering that that chain 2 that we started this row off with counts as our first stitch. And now that that slip stitch row is all finished up, switch back out to our back loop half double crochet row. So chain 2, flip our work, and then put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch. Our row 3 is nearly finished, and we just want to connect it into the base together once more. So again, we're going to count up the next 2 available stitches. So here's 1, here's 2. Into that second stitch, insert with a slip stitch to close off this half double crochet row, then slip stitch into that following stitch, flip our work, and then put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, and then that's it. From here, continue to repeat our 2 previous rows. So a back loop slip stitch row and a back loop half double crochet row with no increases and no decreases. And I will meet you back once we reach the stitch marker stitch along the back. We have just made our way all the way around with our left bottom band. We don't have any more stitches left to work into, so now we're going to do an outside loop slip stitch seam. So making sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up, we're going to find the first stitch from our front panel and insert only in through that front loop. Find the next stitch into the back panel, insert in through that back loop only, yarn over and pull through everything on our hook, so all 3 of those loops. Let's do one more. Into that next stitch into the front panel, insert into that front loop, next stitch into the back panel, insert into that back loop, and pull through everything, and then that's it. We're going to continue to do this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. So since our bottom band is all done, now I just need to clean up our neckline and the back of our piece. So I'm just going to talk you guys through it because it's going to be pretty simple. All we're going to do is make sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up, and then we're going to insert our 5mm hook into any one of the stitches that we have along the neckline. And then from there, we're just going to single crochet all the way down. Once we reach our side rows, we're going to be putting 2 single crochets into every side half double and 1 single crochet into every side slip stitch row, making our way all the way across. And then single crochet all the way back up and slip stitch into that chain space. Once when it comes to doing our back, we're going to do the same thing. So make sure the work is flipped right side out, right side up, single crochet our way all the way down. And then working across our back and that little bit of underarm that we have along the front panel, 2 single crochets into every side half double, and 1 single crochet into every side slip stitch row, working our way across. When we don't have any more stitches left to work into, slip stitch into that chain space, and then do a chain up of 1 and cut. I'm back, single crocheting across my neckline, and my back is all finished up. Now the last thing we're going to have to do is just weave in all of our ends. And there you have it. Hope you guys enjoyed the tutorial. Join us on Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter. Those links are down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Catch you on the next one. Bye!